I've always found the concept of a turbine-powered car fascinating. Being able to sit behind the roaring gas turbine and feel the pure power coming out of such methods of propulsion. It's really beautiful in a sense, how much rotational force can be captured in a tube. And it really is too bad that they never caught on. It was the product of the 50s and the 60s, engineers and people with fantastical dreams of not only the future but what they had to work with now. Post-war inspiration caused imagination of the masses, and it resulted in cars like the Chrysler Turbine and the Firebird. Today, I'm going to cover the birth and the death of the turbine car, why it was dreamt up, how it works, and why it didn't end up working out. Post-war America was high on confidence and leaded fuel. We were building bombers, microwaves, and drive-thrus faster than anyone could question whether any of it made sense. So when some Chrysler engineer stood up in a meeting and said, "What if we just slapped a jet engine in a car?" nobody laughed. They said, "Sure, build it." And they did. The Chrysler turbine car wasn't a joke. It was a real, bronze spaceship rolling through the suburban streets. The kind of thing Don Draper would drive if his whiskey glass had a seatbelt, slick lines, and a turbine whine, and the ability to run on anything from kerosene to French perfume. It screamed progress. Or maybe just screamed. The engine typically ran at 20,000 RPMs and sounded like an air raid siren in full heat. And it kind of worked. They built a bunch of turbine-powered concept vehicles, starting with the 1954 Chrysler Turbine Special, and eventually refined it into the 1963 Chrysler Turbine car, a real, drivable prototype that 203 regular people got to test. The car itself looked incredible. Bronze paint, spaceship taillights, a sleek Lincoln-style body, and under the hood it had a gas turbine engine that was able to run it up to 45,000 RPM. Let me repeat, 45,000 RPMs. Although, if you wanted the rest of the neighborhood to respect you, you could run the engine within its typical range of 18 to 22,000 RPM. At peak power, you could eke out around 130 horsepower, which was enough to get this American beast rolling. The best part is that it could run on almost everything. Diesel, kerosene, even tequila. And yes, somebody did actually test that. 200 families were handed one of these things to test it in the wild. They drove it to work, store, PTA meetings, and for a few months, America flirted with the idea that maybe the future had already arrived. And turbines, despite their flaws, had some big advantages over pistons. Fewer moving parts meant less maintenance, which did actually mean some money saved. They were multi-fuel capable. They could run on perfume, cooking oil, kerosene, etc. Although, if you're in a position where you need to use alternate fuels, I don't think you're in the market for a turbine car in the first place. It also had very smooth power delivery, with no vibration, which would probably make it key for luxury cars. And they had a certain amount of cool factor. It sounded like a jet because, well, it is. Chrysler also weren't alone with their turbine concepts. GM built the Firebird concept, which was amazing. Renault, Rover, and Ford even played with turbine testbeds. And the Howmet TX, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, was a turbine-powered race car that actually competed in Le Mans. So, why isn't your mom's Toyota Sienna powered by a turbine? The thing about jet engines is, yes, they're amazing in theory. Smooth, elegant, powerful. But take them out of a fighter jet or an airliner and stick them in traffic on a Tuesday morning, and suddenly you've got problems. Throttle lag? Try waiting a few full seconds between gas pedal and go. Smoothness? Great. But so is having any modicum of acceleration. And this thing accelerated like a confused elephant looking for a non-existent oasis. It wasn't a bad car, it was just the wrong kind of good. Not to mention the fuel economy. You didn't have it. You had the fuel economy of a muscle car with none of the muscle. Speaking of which, traditional piston engines, even at the time, were getting into the 30s in terms of miles per gallon, at least in hyper-economy cars. Still, it had soul. It felt like driving the promise of the 50s and 60s, a loud, impractical, tequila-fueled promise. By 1966, Chrysler's turbine program hit a wall. The government wasn't interested in helping at scale, fuel prices were rising, and buyers liked the novelty but not the drive. Chrysler quietly scrapped the whole thing. Literally. Out of the 55 turbine cars that were built, they destroyed most of them. Only 9 survived, and only 3 are still operational today. To this day, the turbine car lives on as one of the greatest what-ifs in automotive history. While companies like Jaguar and Capstone are experimenting with them as range extenders for their EV, the turbine car is really a relic of the past. But for a brief moment in the 60s, it looked like the future. A bronze, jet-powered, cologne-burning future. And honestly, I kind of wish it worked. In the end, the turbine car didn't just fail, it vanished. No angry press release, no dramatic recall, just a slow fade into automotive folklore. And for some like me, the automotive dream of turbine cars will never die. Somewhere deep in the labs, with some guy with NASA clearance, the turbine dream still lives on. But we all know the truth. Tech is outpacing the turbine. And if it didn't work in the 60s, the era of moonshots and martinis, it will never work in the beige crossover V6 era. Still, for a brief, smoky moment in Chrysler's history, they built a car that ran on jet fuel and pure American arrogance, and it was beautiful. Thank you for watching.